After the mixed reception from Marie Antoinette, for her next film, Coppola returned with Somewhere, a production similar in many ways to her breakout hit Lost in Translation, and inspired by the birth of her second child to make a film which explored a more parental angle, as the film follows Johnny Marco, here played by Stephen Dorff, who, despite enjoying the fame and success of a newly launched acting career, lives a life which is very much emotionally empty, and while recovering from a broken arm, begins to find purpose for his daughter Cleo, who has just been dumped on him by his ex-wife. The film itself was one of the more forgotten films in Coppola's filmography, despite the similar style to Lost in Translation. But was this a case of an audience being bored by Coppola attempting to pull the same trick again, or did something else just not connect with the film? I'm Elwood.
I'm Kim.
And you're listening to Movies and Tea. Let's take it to the... Well, welcome once again to Movies and Tea. Tonight we're going to be talking about Somewhere from 2010. As we said, this is probably one of the more forgotten films on the Sofia Coppola's filmography, and a film which was probably one of the films I watched the most when I was working for the cable company, because we were allowed to have the TV on. And I just used to catch up on films there, and this film I would constantly have on in the background because it worked really well without sound, because all the films we watched had to be with the subtitles on them. So I used to watch this film a lot, and I think this is one of the films I've only seen a couple of times with the sound, including this watching for this one. So I was very interested to see how it flowed, because I knew going into this one that it's a little different than Lost in Translation, but at the same time the style's very there, and it's also got a real sense of, this is really a film about nothing. So I was really interested to see how this one went, Kim, and I think this one was one, much like I'm Marie Antoinette, I was skeptical of what you would think of it, because I thought those were going to be like the two break ones, because when we look at the films which are going to follow, like Bling Ring and The Beguiled, they're kind of a little more traditional in their sort of style. So, I mean, opening thoughts on Somewhere, I mean, what did you sort of think of it?
I think that this one worked for me quite a bit more than Marie Antoinette. I really I have a really soft spot for movies about father and daughters. So this one really, really worked for me. On my side, I actually think that they didn't have enough about the father and daughter. There was a little bit too much of that first bit about him being emotionally empty over and over and over again. And there's only so many pole dancing shots I need to see before I'm a bit fed up. Yeah, so I mean, it's good though. This one has a lot of more of an, I guess it's more of an art house, really art house style. I can really feel that Lost in Translation thing, but it is a different angle. I wouldn't say it's about nothing. It's still about a slice of life in a person, in this case, Johnny Marco. I think that there's a lot more here in terms of storytelling, because it's about, when it's about a father and daughter, it's not just this relationship is now and it's gonna stop for the rest of your life, Lost in Translation, where it's, you can assume that that's only, a week in this person's life and they're probably not gonna see this person again.
Certainly with this one, we get to see a character certainly grow. Certainly in the case of Johnny, I mean, as you said already, when he's introduced, we get a good 40 minutes of just how vacuous and empty his life is. I mean, he's very sort of unemotional. He's filling his life with things, and to constantly feel stimulated by things, because he just has nothing going on really. I mean, he hangs out with his actor friends and model types, and as you said already, when we get the pole dancing twins who turn up to his room and put on performances he often falls asleep to. The two pole dancing twins here, played by Christina and Carissa Shannon, most noteworthy for being ex-girlfriends of Hugh Hefner. You can actually watch the audition footage with Sofia Coppola and the twins on the season 6 episode of the show that they used to do, Girls Next Door, which has not aged well. It feels really vacuous when you watch it now, but back in the day it was kind of interesting to watch. But I have to say, they're not particularly great dancers, it has to be said, and it kind of ties into this sort of world that you can see him having. I mean, he's sort of got this sort of bad boy edge to him, but at the same time you can tell he's sort of a good guy, which is kind of the reason that Stephen Dorff got got cast. I mean, Coppola said that, when I'm thinking of this sort of character, I mean, my mind instantly goes to Stephen Dorff, and we've previously seen Stephen Dorff really work the bad boy angle when we were discussing Blade 2 back in our second season, because he was obviously the bad guy in the original Blade, playing Deacon Frost, and it's kind of weird to see him like go from like such a high energy role to he's like almost catatonic. He doesn't really say or do much. You're not sure if he's happy or enjoying his life, and certainly when you see him going for like the day-to-day sort of life, he sort of like receives a call from his agent, he gets in the car, he goes to Press Junkie, he takes the photos, and he comes back to his hotel. It's very mechanical, his life that he's going through, and to the point where he's like filling his life with so much stimulation just so he's got something going on, and he keeps going until he like basically collapses. So if he's like falls asleep when he's watching the girls pole dancing, he falls asleep while he's going down on his girlfriend. It's like all these impromptu moments he's just like dozed off when he's sort of like overstimulated himself to the point where he can sort of like get some sort of calm in his life. And it was kind of interesting that angle to him, but they never really sort of explored it further to say why he was the way he was.
Well, I think it's just a statement about how a lot of these things he feels like it's like, it feels like he thinks it's gonna help him, but it's just he's still not like connected to these events. It's all like, the fact that he needs company and the fact that, he's lonely and that sort of stuff, because, at the end when he opens up to his ex-wife about this, then, you really see that, that side of him where he does want someone in his life, and he does feel his life is really empty and all the things that's going on. And it's nice to see that, it's his daughter and spending time with his daughter that's really changed him to want to make his life a little bit more meaningful and spend his days a little bit more than just, hooking up with girls and looking at the girl next door and not having a stable life where you're living in, a hotel every day and just having someone, serve you and, and lack that commitment.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically living this sort of transient lifestyle because he lives in this hotel room. He's got no sort of like possessions as such. He just has what the hotel room is sort of furnished with. And his whole life, as you said, Red, I mean, it's just basically, drinking and partying and just trying to strive off boredom that he feels between acting gigs. His acting gigs are his only real sort of sense of purpose. And the hotel we're staying at is the Chateau Marmont, which is kind of like a well-known celebrity retreat. And it's actually somewhere Coppola had noted as having stayed herself. So if you like watch the making of for this film, she like notes that she would like constantly see like these guys who were like Johnny like wandering down the hallways and stuff, just these guys who were like in between acting jobs or like rock stars or whatever, and they were just like, this was like their sort of sense of normality, but they had no real sort of home base as such because they were always constantly on the road, and this was like where they would like go to sort of chill out, but at the same time they were just constantly trying to find ways to sort of strive off the boredom. So when we get introduced to Cleo, and as I say, it would surprise me the fact that their relationship is so normal. You would think that it would be a sort of more awkward relationship, especially because she is introduced, he's like passed out and with his clothes on in the bed, and she like comes in and neither her nor the ex-wife like comments on it at all. It's sort of like, oh, it's just Thursday. But this is completely normal to come in and find my father like passed out with his clothes on, and this whole situation.
But I think it's like, but I mean, that's got to be one of the reasons why the ex-wife left him in the first place, right? It feels like it's insinuating towards something like that, where he's just not taking enough responsibility in the relationship to to the point that she's fed up with, she's having a breakdown because she's had a lot to deal with on her end as well. And, that's why, she's like, okay, well, you take care of Cleo now. And, we're kind of like an experience for him at that point where he gets to, learn to be the father. Because obviously at the beginning we can see he isn't, just the fact that, he knows what he should and shouldn't do. Say, not, maybe not hook up with a girl with his daughter next door, but at the same time, he knows it's not right because he seems like he resists it, but at the end he still does it. And I think that one of the really, like, scenes that I liked a lot was the fact that, they were all sitting there after that the next morning, and the girl that he slept with is just sitting there in a bathrobe at the breakfast table. Like, nothing happened, like she's supposed to be there, And then the daughter's just looking, like, Cleo's just looking at him like, you're either going to explain this or not, kind of thing. Why is she here, sort of deal. And I loved how Elle Fanning was, the reaction she did, and just how she treated that situation without saying anything. She had a lot of command of that scene itself.
Oh, definitely. You get the feeling that she doesn't even ask if this girl's going to be sticking around or not. This breakfast is the only time that she's going to see her, because he knows as soon as she goes out the door, then that's it. She's going to be gone from her life. So she's just another stranger at breakfast to her. And Cleo's very clearly grown up in this bubble of celebrity. So these trappings of celebrity don't faze her at all. The fact that her father's a famous actor, none of it's like phasing her at all. And she's very much, when she's introduced, she's very much the parent in this relationship, as she's shown that she's like clean and she's cooking for him, and she's got her whole routine like completely down at the hotel. She knows that, if she wants to make omelets and stuff, she can phone down to reception and they bring up everything for her. And the bellboys know her, who she is as well, because they have this rapport when they did, so like when you see them passing the trays through and stuff. So it's kind of like kind of interesting that she's initially do, she's more like the parent, and then once Johnny starts to settle into the father role, that she finally gets a chance to sort of be the kid again. And you can see him trying to improve on himself, like when he comes back from Rome and he finds the girl in his bed waiting for him, and he knows that he didn't want his daughter to see, so he sends her downstairs to go and get burgers, and where he quickly gets rid of this girl. Which I thought was just the evolution of his character, and just him stepping up and being a parent just felt very natural. It wasn't like this one like dramatic event, and then like suddenly, as you often get, it's like that dramatic event and then you like snap into being like parent of the year.
But I think that's the charm of Coppola's films, and I think that's also the hurdle of her films, is that some people will find this really boring because it's such a natural and gradual thing that you have to experience. There's no big climax. There's no like crazy dramatic event that's going to happen. It's going to be something that happens naturally, and the characters develop naturally, and it's normal because it makes sense. A father and daughter's relationship isn't brought together. I'm sure in some situations it's brought closer or further apart because of some dramatic situation in real life. But, in a normal situation, when your relationship with, say, a father and daughter or a parent and a child, it's always going to be better because, it's always going to get better when you spend more time with them. Or the other way around, But, I mean, that's the gradual development of a character, and that's why it feels so natural. And, I think going back to something that I forgot to talk about before, when you were saying about, Stephen Dorff, having that, change from seeing him in Blade and then seeing him in Somewhere, I think that, in Blade as a villain, he, I think that he's more a bit crazy, I guess. More like physically emotive, physically, acting. Whereas in this one, I really thought that, at least for me, I felt that his acting skills were really there, because in Blade, I really didn't care much about him. But in this one, you really see that, I think that an actor is at his best when he doesn't talk and he's able to emote through his facial expressions, and, just doing this without any words, any script, and you can still see what the scene is trying to portray. And I think that for him, I think that was the biggest surprise for me, because I went into this being like, wow, Steven Dorff. I really don't know if I'm going to be down with him doing this role. And then it turns out that he did a really good job at being Johnny Marco.
Definitely. And it's, as you said, it's really subtle. It's a really subtle performance that he's given here. And we see, especially with his relationship with Cleo, the fact that something switches in his brain very early on through her reintroduction into his life, and he takes her to an ice skating lesson, and she's doing her ice capades routine to Gwen Stefani's I Know a Cool, I think it is, which is just a song I absolutely hate. I like Gwen Stefani, but I hate that song, so pretty much having to sit through the whole song was a bit grating. But she's there giving this performance, and normally for up until this point, he's like constantly like, I've got to have these constant distractions unless I'm working. And when he's watching a performance, you can see he's like initially he's like playing on his phone, he's keeping distracted, and then he slowly starts paying attention to his daughter, and he puts his phone down, and he's just like transfixed watching his daughter just ice skating. And nothing's, there's nothing else said about it. It's just one of these slice of life moments that sort of pepper throughout the film. And there's many moments that appear throughout the film that Coppola actually borrows from her own life. I mean, she grew up the daughter of a famous director, Francis Ford Coppola, and there's so many moments that she sort of peppers into this film. Even though she says it's not an autobiographical film, she still puts in these moments that she remembers from her own life, such as like ordering all the flavors of gelato with her father when they were staying in a hotel in Milan, and going on a helicopter ride. And you see these elements appear within the film, and they form these really touching father-daughter moments here. And it's kind of nice that you see her giving these sort of like nods to her father, because they both speak really warmly about each other. I mean, she's constantly talks about her father being this wonderful director, and how even in this sort of later stage of his career, the fact that he still has all these young directors going and asking him for advice, and that he should really go off and be like a film school professor and just give advice to actors and directors because he's just so good at it. And in return, he's like constantly talked about how proud he is of her as a director, and the fact that she went off and found her own style. And even though he's executive producing a film, he's very hands off. He doesn't have any sort of interference in her films. He's just lets her get on with directing. And it's just sort of reflects also because there was a lot of, when especially like during Marie Antoinette, there was a lot of like rumors floating around that he was like doing a lot of directing on set, and he's just like constantly saying, no, I'm not directing anything. It's you can see there's a very key difference between my work and Sophia's. So it's nice that the fact she works in all these own father-daughter moments from her own life. It's kind of nice to see, and the fact that it transfers so well to this film. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that one of the things, talking about the figure skating scene, I really like the fact, I think that it was the first moment, I think, that Cleo really showed him, I think maybe revived a little bit of what, or reminded him a little of what having a passion for what you do is, because she's really dedicated to her figure skating and, just getting it right and all that sort of stuff. And I think that that's part of what mesmerized him, because it definitely feels like he's just going through the motions as an actor at this point, where he doesn't really have that direction and passion anymore for it. Definitely, losing that passion for life, because his work takes up, most of his time. It's cost him, having a stable life and, settling down in that sense. And that's why, I think the hotel comes into place. And at the same time, that scene also was the first time I realized, I think that, maybe not the first time, but a lot of the music comes into the movie really naturally. As, soundtracks, with the twins doing pole dancing, or with, the figure skating music. And in many different situations, there's not a whole lot of other background music than those that are actually in the scene playing for some reason.
Yeah. How did you find the fact that here we have Joe Marco? He's obviously an actor, but we never see him on a film set. It's all sort of like the business side that we see him dealing with, like he's doing promotion work, he's answering questions at a Q&A session, or he, as I say, he's doing photo sessions. It's or we even have that really long gate scene where he's being fitted for a prosthetic. We never see, as I say, we never see him do any sort of acting. It's just all sort of like the business side of things that we see that he attends to.
But at the same time, it makes sense because he's an action star and he broke his arm and he's in recovery. So it kind of makes sense that he wasn't working, and that was kind of like that perfect set for him at this point, where it's kind of like the moment where when you finally have downtime, you really examine your life and how boring it is. Because if you didn't, a lot of people, what it is, I know I'm like that. When, I'm really busy, I'm really happy with everything. But when you sit down, you start thinking and over-examining your life a little. And there's moments where you see these things and you become emotionless and you realize, there's a lot of things around that, aren't going as you would like. And you start seeing all these things that maybe you want to improve or whatnot. And, some people can fall into a vicious cycle.
Okay. Something I also wanted to ask as well. I mean, this is with her first 3 films. They've looked at, feminine self-definition and maturation. And here, this is the first time she switches, first of all, to a male perspective, but also is touching upon new themes as we're here looking at ideas and themes about, seclusion and depression, especially during that sort of opening 40 minutes. So, I mean, how did you find her moving away from like more familiar themes? Because, as you said, with the first 3 films, it's always a female perspective, and certainly when we look at the films which follow, they've got heavy female sort of influence. These are majority female casts that she's dealing with. So here we have a real sort of oddity in her filmography, and the fact that, with Johnny Marquardt, it's her first male leading role character, and it's a completely new set of themes that she seems to be dealing with. So how did you find her doing something different?
I mean, Lost in Translation had a man too. Bill Murray is a man. So is it his first time? Is it her first time doing a male perspective? I mean, I liked it. I mean, obviously, I like this movie, and I actually think it's very on par for me with Lost in Translation. I would actually rank it quite up there with Lost in Translation. Maybe like a little bit lower, because Lost in Translation, it is Bill Murray, Scarlett Johansson. So there's like a whole different level of chemistry there. But I think it worked. I felt like there might have been a lot of stereotypes that was casted onto him, not only like as a male actor and a male celebrity. I feel like there's a lot of that whole, the angle that she's taking with it. But I feel like at the same time it meshes with the story she wants to tell. So I don't know if, from as a female talking about this, it makes sense. I think it's more, you should answer the question about how you felt about her taking the male perspective.
I thought it comes across very sort of realistic. I mean, certainly the interactions that he has, and how the initial sort of like sort of cluelessness of his situation, because he doesn't obviously have the natural maternal sort of factor there to know what he's doing. So it's a good thing that obviously Cleo's so sort of clued up and that she can look after herself, because I think it would be a pretty tragic movie if she didn't know how to look after herself, and that he was like basically like Forrest Gumping his way through this film. And I mean, yes, you said already with Lost in Translation, we have Bill Murray in the male lead, but I mean, we still have that sort of safety net. The safety net with Scarlett Johansson's character, that she can obviously explore her sort of familiar themes. Here, she has no such safety net. It's, as I say, it's very much the male perspective she's writing with, and I think she writes a very realistic male perspective, especially in how the father-daughter sort of style of relationship. I mean, just obviously talking from someone as kids. I mean, I don't have daughters, I have sons, so it's a bit hard to say how realistic that sort of interaction is. But it certainly felt, as an audience member, felt very realistic when I was watching the on-screen chemistry between Cleo and Johnny. And certainly when we go to Rome, which feels like very much like a polar opposite to Life in LA. And Life in LA is sort of like very much all sort of celebrity and work. And then when he goes to Rome, he's treated like this, triple A celebrity. He has like police escorts from the airport, and he's given like awards, and like has people like constantly following him around, and he's put up in like the poshest hotels, which when you compare it to where he's living in LA at the chateau, and then we go to Rome and he's like in this 5 Seasons style hotel room where it's got its own private pool with jacuzzi, and it's just like these lush beds and stuff, and it's like he's living in an art gallery. It's so sumptuous, the hotel he's in, and just how he's treated it was like so complete opposite. And it's sort of like the one time that you get to see Johnny as celebrity, because he could just be like seen as just like, you know, an average guy when we see him like in the hotel life that he's living in LA. Obviously we get those hints. Obviously he's got the celebrity there, the fact that he's got this endless stream of women who want to sleep with him, and including a really bizarre unanswered plot thread where he's receiving abusive text messages, but we never find out who from.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask you. Whether we ever know who sent them.
I don't know. I don't know, because it's hard to say, because he's constantly got this fear that he's being followed, and him and Cleo kind of turn it into kind of like a spy game where she's like taking down the license plates, and I wasn't sure if that's paparazzi, if it's this crazed stalker, this sort of like a jilted lover that's been sending abusive texts. I wasn't sure if it's his ex-wife, but then again, he has phone conversations with ex-wife, and you can tell what sort of relationship they have. So it was kind of frustrating that we never find out the answer to that one.
Yeah, because I thought, you know, maybe it was me. I might have, like, you know, phased out for a second or something and missed it. So maybe I didn't. It wasn't that crazy. Okay. Yeah. I do like, you know, the point that you made about, you know, the how in Rome and all that. But I think one of the things I really like about the movie is the shots. There's so many still shots, and it might be because I just got out of Hobbs and Shaw, which like blurred my eyes, and my eyes are still adapting back to like things being still. But it was so nice because every single shot you see things kind of like, you know, even just from the opening shot, right? You have it focus on him driving his car in a circle, like in laps. And all you see is the sound of his car going away, and then it'll go past the screen. And it's like a still shot that goes through many, many parts of the movie, even when he's on the pool and he floats off. And I love that whole idea of how those shots are done.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how you would take those sorts of shots. As you said, it's a very long shot that we see where the camera's just fixed in a stationary position, and we just hear the sound of the car going round and round, and you know, this is again the first hint of Johnny trying to get some sort of stimulation as he's driving his Ferrari in the racetrack. And I mean, I don't personally like that sort of things, but I could say at the same time see people seeing this, wow, this is really kind of boring and pretentious, just this shot. And certainly if you've got like a really sort of basic sound system like myself, you don't obviously get full appreciation of the sound going from one side to the next, which if you've got a decent sound system, it really comes into its own, that particular sequence and stuff. So
I mean, I just like how it was done. I think it's you know, the concept of, you know, just how things are moving, but you don't have to be moving at that time. You know, it's I feel it's a very, like, in a certain way, it gives you time with that stillness to kind of, you know, really ponder that shot and why it was there, and you know, the meaning of that sort of, I don't know, that stillness of it. It's you know, it's something that people don't do as much anymore, and it is, and it's that artsy side of indie films that, you know, really I really like about that side, where people are able to take these moments and really elevate it, and you know, I think it really says a lot about Coppola and just how she's been, you know, how she really embraces that kind of, you know, the art of making something out of nothing. It's, you know, it's in her style of her movies, and when you think deeper about all the stuff we've watched so far, and Somewhere at the same time, you know, obviously it definitely, you know, that's what I'm starting to really appreciate, you know, these different relationships that she brings to the screen, and these different characters that she builds and develops, and every single one has their own story, even though, I'm not a huge fan of Marie Antoinette, but it had its merit at the same time of, there was no fault in how the character was developed. Their fault was in the pacing of the movie itself. So, kudos for her to doing something like that. And, talking about characters, this movie had a ton of, cameos from actors now, though. I mean, Benicio del Toro.
That was so good, when they have the conversation in the lift, and it's so awkward. But it's sort of like they both have this sort of professional recognition for each other, and he's so cool.
Yeah. And then, we had Ellie Kemper, and then I guess something, I don't know how popular Michelle Monaghan is, but I saw her in something else before. So it's nice. I'm sure there were other people that I didn't recognize.
Well, we have Chris Pontius of Jackass fame, who plays his best friend.
Okay, right. That guy looked familiar. I kept thinking that he was preying on the daughter.
Oh, really?
I had that really.
I just thought.
But then I felt like he was just kind of like that bridge. Like he was the bridge before he grew up, sort of thing. Before Johnny Marco grew up. He was very concerned. Like they were childhood friends. He would kind of really reveal a lot of his father's youth and their rebellious days to the daughter, and really kind of close that connection of maybe the time that she didn't get to spend with him, she's able to learn about it through other people.
But there's that theory that the age you find fame at is the age you remain at. And certainly when you look at Chris Pontius' character, and he plays again with Joey Marco, and there's something I appreciate about Pontius' character as Sammy is the fact that he's chatty where Johnny isn't so much. So it really helped to fill in those moments, and it's certainly something I missed.
Yeah, exactly.
With Lost in Translation, well, even though we're not going from scene to scene to scene, we have interesting conversations, and I kind of miss that in some ways. It's a lot more about sort of silences, and the conversations are a lot more subtle. So when we had Sammy, and you got they're in the hotel room, and he's doing art with Cleo while Johnny's playing Guitar Hero, and he's there asking whether her ballet instructor's like a drunk. And the old dance teachers are drunks, which I thought was really funny. I think, as I said, he really helped to sort of fill those moments and not make it so much a drag, because it's really and towards the end where him and Cleo sort of become more chatty. And it really, once they return from Rome, that you see him sort of stepping up to the father role, because she's going off to summer camp, and it's coming to the end of their sort of time together, and you see him going through what she's going to need for camp, and there's this really touching scene where he's talking about, do you want me to smuggle you a snack in, in case you get hungry and stuff. And I was like, oh, that's so touching. It's sort of the sort of thing my folks would do when I went off to camp and stuff, is try and smuggle me snacks in, even though we're not supposed to. But it's all good trading material, I'll tell you that much, as a former scout.
Yeah, no, I mean, the ending was, I think as we get into that scene of her leaving, I think that's when you really see the connection that he's built with Cleo. And it's a really touching relationship, because, Cleo at this point, she hasn't really, shed a lot of light about her feelings, because obviously she might have a lack of trust for Johnny at this point, up to that point. As a parent, she's been taking care of him more than he has. And, as he starts taking care of her more, she has to leave. And I'm guessing this is only, very few days together. So it's to her, it's still, she has her concerns, whether her mom is coming back, where, what's going to happen with her dad, and, the things that she's been really insecure about in life that, he might have never really acknowledged until, now when he's becoming a father. So, I think one of the scenes that touched me the most was, in the helicopter, as she's, going away, and he's like, sorry, I haven't been around, and, and it's, and she doesn't hear it.
Those scenes when he's starting to warm up, and we see it in Rome when he's getting the Telgato Award. And I love the fact that they're explaining the instructions to him because they know he doesn't speak Italian. So they're basically like giving him cues. It's like, oh, when you hear this name and this name, you've got to stand up and they're going to give you the award. And it gets to the end of his speech, and clearly there's this whole dance routine that comes on that he's not been told about. So he's sort of stood there and he's trying to move around it, and you see the dancers are trying to improv, and he sees how much it's amusing Cleo, and he sort of goes along with it because he knows he's making her laugh, and it's so touching, that whole sequence. Just even how random it is, the fact that he gets this cat award for I think it's like a TV performance or something. I wasn't too sure what's going on because it's all in Italian.
Something like that. You know, when we get to the ending, because we've already talked about Cleo leaving now, so I guess we should jump onto the ending. I'm still trying to really figure out the whole idea. You know, obviously he boxed up his life and, you know, he's gonna find a place to live and, you know, settle down a little, which is all fine and dandy. But, you know, and then I just don't understand why he decided to leave his car in the middle of the road and just walk away. Is it like a sign of him, like, leaving that, you know, very stimulating, like, the fake stimulation life behind or something?
It very much felt like every cliche Gene commercial of, like, the 90s and stuff. And I think there was a... there's a Charlie's Throne advert where she's walking down and she's shedding her jewelry and all this, her gown and all this other thing, and this shedding the celebrity skin and becoming a normal person, which I don't think he's going to become a normal person. I think he's just like realized what he wants in life, and he's starting over again, which to him means just abandoning his Ferrari in the middle of a field and walking down a country road. But you know, he seems happy. You kind of want to know what happens next, but you know, this is the point that we stop being visitors in this world and we're just on to the next thing, really.
But, you know, there's a satisfaction to him doing it at the same time. You know, while I wasn't completely sure why he was doing it. But, you know, the fact that, you know, it's nice to see that he's able to, you know, let go a bit of, you know, the irresponsible and unstable parts of his life and really kind of, like, maybe own up to the role that he wants to be for his daughter and, you know, the way he wants to live his life.
It felt like Coppola had felt that she needed an ending, and this is the ending we get. Whether it's a good ending or not, I don't know.
I think it's not. I think it's good. I think that to a certain point, I think that, you know, him driving off into the distance or leaving his car to me would have made no difference. Because a car is a car. It doesn't really, to me, have that much. I think the fact that the significant part was when he packed up his stuff and was like, okay, well, I'm going to go find somewhere to live and send you the address to where, you know, I need you guys to send me this stuff afterwards. And I think that was more significant than, you know, that follow-up part about, you know, where he was just like, oh, I'm just going to leave my car and go sort of thing. I just, you know... But it's nice because at whatever the ending is, it means that, you know, we see that smile as he's walking away. And the fact that, you know, he's found some sort of happiness and some sort of emotion is the progress that we didn't see, you know, that we got from the beginning of the movie till now. And, you know, and with all of Coppola's films, it's like that. She starts, you know, with something and then she ends with something. So she started with the car in the first scene. So she ended with the car in the last scene. And, you know, it's in those details, right?
Yeah, it comes full circle in that way. You
know, a staple of Coppola, I guess. It's you know, those little things.
You're right in that respect. I think it just, you know, life doesn't always give you an ending wrapped up. It's sometimes it just keeps going.
But that's the thing is, I think that it falls right into, you know, what we've seen so far, because everything is just a slice of life. It's always a few days or a week or whatever. Obviously, Marie Antoinette was much longer. But, I mean, like, it's always like a phase in someone's life. And that phase goes on after we're done watching the movie. You know, when the movie ends, this character's life continues. We just don't know where it goes. And I think for this one, it follows exactly the same way. It's exactly like, Lost in Translation when, he goes to the airport and she's walking down the street sort of thing, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's
yeah. So it's right exactly her like what you'd expect of Sofia Coppola, even if it's a bit mind-boggling sometimes what her intentions are.
Further watching, I don't know about yourself, but I've got some random ideas on what you can pair with it. If I don't know if you want to go first, or I can go first. Whatever way you want to go.
It's up to you. I have two, so it's up to you.
First off, if you do like this, I would recommend checking out Wonder Boys, which is from 2000, which is directed by Curtis Hanson. The film itself, it sees a professor here played by Michael Douglas, who's a professor and he's suffering from writer's block, and at the same time has to deal with his star student who has written his first play, and at the same time his literary aide coming in expects him to have written a book, which what follows is a series of bizarre and unusual adventures between the three of them as they find ever new unique ways to cause chaos over a holiday season. It's a film I really, really like, and it's one that I'm probably going to have us check out at some point. The other two, I would say, on the surface, are probably just wildly different than Somewhere, but it's that idea of lost souls. First up would be the adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's Rules of Attraction, about very liberal art students. And the next one I would also recommend would be Greg Araki's Noah, which is part of his apocalyptic trilogy, which featured Doom Generation and Totally Fucked Up, as well as this film, and it basically follows again more lost souls in the LA basin, finding their way as they go through their various day-to-day lives, which is of course, being Greg Araki, heavily full of sex and drugs and other bad behavior, but really a shining example of his filmography, and worth checking out, especially if you're new to the new queer movement. I definitely think his work is a real sort of shining example of what the movement was really about. So, but Kim, what have you got? I'm sure you've probably got something a lot more grounded and more connected than I've gone with.
I don't know if it's grounded or connected. But I mean, the first movie that came to my mind when I was watching this, is on a father-daughter relationship, is 2008's Definitely Maybe, with it's like a romantic comedy, but it has a lot of elements because it's Ryan Reynolds and who plays the father, and the daughter is Abigail Breslin, who I love when she was young. Now, as she's older, she hasn't done really good roles. But, like, when she was young, she did a lot of really good stuff. So, I mean, this movie is really fun because it's, it talks about them. They're bonding over as the daughter learns about his past relationships. As she tries to, kind of slowly pry to know who her mom is, kind of thing. And at the same time, obviously, he's having this, romantic comedy side where he meets a girl and blah, blah, blah. That sort of stuff. So, but the father-daughter relationship here is really, it's a more lighthearted one than this one, but it's a lot of fun. Like the dynamic between Ryan Reynolds and Abigail Breslin that they have is really good. It's really worth seeing. On the other side, I mean, I went a little bit more on just, I guess, change and whatnot. So I chose something with Scarlett Johansson called We Bought a Zoo. And it's 2011. It has Matt Damon, Scarlett Johansson. As, it's about a father who moves his family, I think after he loses his wife, and wants a change. And he goes and buys himself a zoo. And tries to renovate and reopen it. Yeah, so there's a lot of dynamic there. It's more of I believe it's more of a father. I think it's like he has 2 kids in this one. So it still has a lot of parenting going on as they're trying to, get into it. And, Scarlett Johansson is kind of like our little link to to the films and Coppola as well.
Now you've also mentioned all these father-daughter relationships. There's one more I want to throw out there, and that would be Kevin Smith's much underrated 2004 film Jersey Girl, which has Ben Affleck, the more talented of the Ben Affleck, Matt Damon duo. I've already got in a huge argument over the Lamb about my comments about Matt Damon, so we'll leave that alone. But yeah, Ben Affleck, he stars as a media publicist who loses his wife, here played at the time by his then girlfriend Jennifer Lopez, and he's basically gets fired from his job as a publicist, and he has to go and work with his father in New Jersey, and it's just basically about him trying to raise his daughter and at the same time sort of deal with life as a single parent, especially as the prospect of regaining his old life as a publicist looms on the horizon. I thought it was a really touching film. It's very much a departure for Kevin Smith, and I think it's a film that he made not only because of the fact that Jason Mewes, his right-hand-man, had gone into rehab at the time, and but also the fact that having just had the birth of his own daughter, Harley Quinn, it felt that he was wanting to do a film about fatherhood, much like Coppola's done here with Somewhere. So I would definitely worth checking out, and don't listen to naysayers who want to dismiss it, because it is really quite a touching little film. So yeah, that's about all we have to say about Somewhere. Now for our next film, Kim, where are we going next?
We are going to 2013's The Bling Ring.
Yep, Bling Ring, a film which was part of a mini little craze of directors making films based on newspaper articles. Here we have a group of students who take it upon themselves to start breaking in and stealing from the homes of famous celebrities. And it's going to be an interesting one to talk about next week. It's her first film that she shot on digital, and also a film that had some very misguided hype about Emma Watson winning an Oscar, so I think there's going to be some real fun discussion to be had with that one. In the meantime, make sure you do hit the like and subscribe buttons wherever you happen to be listening to us, be it on Anchor or iTunes or Google or Spotify. It really helps raise the profile of the show. Much like if you leave us a rating or leave us some comments, it all helps raise the profile of the show. You can, of course, as well connect with us on the social media, which is on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, and you can also check out our archives and reviews, as well as the Friday Film Club on our blog, which is movesintpodcast.wordpress.com. And as I said, every Friday we post a double feature. I pick a film, Kim picks a film, sometimes a theme, sometimes it's just films we really want to discuss and want you to check out, and that's what we post on a Friday, along with our roundup of all the podcasts and articles that have been sort of catching our attention during the week as well. Until next time, thank you for listening as always. Thank you to Kim, and we will see you next time to talk about The Bling Ring.